Iman is something in your heart and manifested in your actions. The ulama said in the past, they said the tongue is the khalifa of the heart. You know what is in the heart, but what comes out of the tongue and the actions. We have talazum. We are inshallah atba' Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. We have talazum bayna zahiri wa batin. What is in our hearts is manifested by the Muslims on our tongue and in our actions. The one who loves Islam, the one who loves the Sharia, the one who wants to see the domination of the Sharia on this world, he will strive and struggle and work for it, definitely, my dear Muslims. So you see, my dear Muslims, these duties go hand in hand. Never put down the dawah, never put down commanding good and forbidding evil. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, he said, Ballighu anni walau aya. He said, convey on behalf of me even one verse. You know, if I say to you, wear some clothes, even if you wear one sock, what will you say? You say, it's foreign for me to wear something. You understand? He said, Ballighu anni walau aya. He said, even one ayah, he said, convey on behalf of me. And our situation becomes in such a desperate state, my dear Muslims. Our situation nowadays, you can see 55 nations, none of them implementing the Sharia. Our land occupied in the east and in the west, and every day they conspire. The government, you can see it, my dear Muslims, in Britain. The head of the state, the British government, they spend millions, tens of millions, they say, to fight the extremists and the radicals. Who are the extremists and the radicals that they're so concerned about? You think they're worried about the one who is praying in his home? 5 salat in his home? You think they're worried about the one who's just sitting in the masjid? You think they're worried about the Muslims, about the one whose Islam is only for himself and his wife and the children? No, my dear Muslims. What they're concerned about is the one who leaves his home and he comes out into the Makkah of the British society. What he's concerned about is the Muslim who comes out on the Trafalgar Square of the Quraysh and he starts to attack their system and their way of life. You see, my dear Muslims, when they talk about some small aspect of the Sharia, this Archbishop of Canterbury, he said maybe in some way we may be able to talk about sometime implementing, maybe hand in hand, some part of the Islamic Sharia. And they all come out, they say there's no way we will ever accept it. And they become so angry by the Muslims. Why? Because the haqq and the batil will never live side by side. The falsehood can never be happy with the haqq, my dear Muslims. Don't fool yourself. A Jew came to the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said, do you like me? He said, no. He said, I hate you, but he said, I will never be unjust towards you. The hatred in our hearts does not mean that we go into the streets and we start to fight with the people. No. We hate them because they're kafir and because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to hate them. How, my dear Muslims, can you love someone he does not believe in your Lord? How can you say that you believe in al-Wudud, in the one who has exclusive love from your heart and still has some love in your heart left for the kuffar and the Jews and the Christians and the Sikhs and the Hindus and all of those other people? And the people nowadays, my dear Muslims, that want to call for interfaith, they say the Jews and the Muslims and everyone, they can live side by side. No, my dear Muslims. Allah said in the Quran, He said, وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً. He said, be careful of the punishment. He said, will not only reach the oppressors among you, it will reach all of you. My dear Muslims, we have many examples in our history where we faced a similar scenario and situation.
He tells me that I should go and conquer this land and that land. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said it 1400 years ago. What is it? Ghulibat Rum. Indeed, victory for that land over there. Why do we not apply those verses for this time? Why do we not fulfill the verse of this time? Meaning the Quran has been taken away. So the missionary movements, they continued and they persisted in what? In diluting and polluting the thoughts and ideas of the Muslims, taking away the Sharia from them. And these missionary movements, they have certain objectives and aims. What they say to the people in apparent? The apparent aim to the people, they said, we're here for promotion of science. We're here for the promotion of medical care. We're here for establishment of education. We're here for humanitarian reasons. Isn't this what Oxfam say? Isn't this what the Red Cross says? Isn't this they go to Guantanamo Bay and we check the situation of the people and I'm sure we can help them in some way or the other. But in actual fact, the motives, the agenda is completely different from what they claim to say. The aims of the missionary movements was never to convert the Muslims in the past from Islam to Christianity. That wasn't the aim. That's too little. But rather they wanted us to become like them as far as they were in Europe. In Europe there's millions and millions of Christians. But the system that they rule by is a secular system, i.e. Elmania, i.e. non-God.
Upon us. Even to exchange the Muslims for the non-Muslims, as Umar bin Abdul Aziz said, he said, release the Muslim even if you give all of the Christians that you have under your captivity for the release of one Muslim. He said, remember, he said, you're not purchasing a Muslim, you are purchasing Islam. Finally, my dear Muslims, the dua is very important. I think the brother will talk about a few other measures we can take. I've got 10 minutes. Alhamdulillah. Can just increase the time. I've finished that. One word just from me personally about my own experience with these police. We live in a time, my dear Muslims, where there is definitely revival taking place among the Muslim community. We can see that everywhere. In prison they say people become Muslim every day. Every week 3 or 4 people becoming Muslim. When you're outside of prison, sometimes you feel so happy when someone becomes Muslim on the dawah stores. In prison they say 3 or 4 every single week. They are so concerned, the Home Office, about how many people are becoming Muslim, they want to completely separate them from the non-Muslims. Because this infection of Islam is spreading throughout the prison system. On top of that, my dear Muslims, the judges and the barristers who are dealing with these cases are so nasty, you can't believe it. Some of the cases which took place recently, they deliberately disallow evidence as far as our own brothers are concerned, and they allow evidence for those people who are prosecuting them. A good example of that was the recent cartoon demonstration, subhanallah. Just for demonstration to defend the honor of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was literally hundreds of hours of footage from all the television crews on that day. And the barristers, the solicitors on behalf of our brothers, they tried to produce that in the court, and the court refused it. And yet they allowed the prosecution to have aerial footage of the demonstration, to try to show how large it was compared to the police, etc. So you can see there's double standards even when you go to court. There is no such thing as a fair trial in Britain. There is no way that somebody's going to find you innocent, my dear Muslims. When you're in that court, they're not looking at Abdullah or Abdul Haq or Aisha. They're looking at the brother of Osama bin Laden. That is the reality. However much the jury is smiling at you, they're going to find you guilty. In that reality, we must remember one thing. There will be no harm will come to any one of us if it's not been destined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if Allah wants to keep us free, that is His haqq, and who can challenge that? If He wants to test you, my dear Muslims, in prison, then who can prevent that? The best defense for us is not silence. I know there are many people out there that don't want to say anything. They're afraid. I remember when they arrested 24 people in Walthamstow. I went to the local masjid. The Imam said, now is the time to remain silent and have sabr, and say nothing. Subhanallah. So they arrest 24 and you say nothing. What if they arrest 50? We're going to slip into a coma or something like that? Subhanallah. You need to raise your voice. The best people who walk this earth, my dear Muslims, they raise their voice. They commanded good, they forbade the evil. They never compromised. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave them victory. It is a test, my dear Muslims. In return for our struggle, our sacrifice in this life, Allah may show you the victory in this life. But certainly on the day of judgment, you will see the consequences of all of those actions.